My name is Julian Morris and I'm a health visitor here in Gloucestershire, and I'm joined by my colleagues Katie and Sarah, who are also health visitors with a specialist interest in infant mental health and parental support. So today we're going to be talking about sort of areas about what happens next after the baby's been born and sort of link it in with feeding as well. But we'll be looking at sort of child development, parental relationships, child communication, and anything really you want to bring to us. It's the first time we've done this sort of Zoom meeting, so if you can bear with us, we'll try and answer the questions as quickly as possible. So let me just introduce you to Katie. Hi, Katie.
Hi.
And Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi there.
Okay, so to start off with, we've got a couple of questions to start off with. So the first one is that I'll aim to Sarah. And it's really generically about what we do. What is the role of the health visitor in supporting parents with the development of their child?
Hi, everybody. So this is the question that came in. As health visitors, so we are all registered nurses or midwives, and we've done an extra degree programme in specialist community public health nursing. And what that means, we look at the family as a whole. So whereas other professionals you might meet might just focus on you as an individual or your child as an individual, we are there for the whole family. So when we first meet you, we do a family health needs assessment. So that's just looking at everything that's going on in your life. And we like to introduce ourselves in pregnancy. So we like to do an antenatal contact with you as much as we can, get to know you, start building our relationships with you. And then obviously you're still being seen then by your midwives. So we wait then until you have your baby. And then we will get back in touch with you after about a week or so. And then we arrange to come in and see you when your baby's about 10 days old. And we then come and help you with feeding. So obviously this is a lot about feeding. So so that's a big part of what we do. Breastfeeding and support your decisions with that, and lots of supporting for you. You might have us as health visitors, you might have a public health nurse, or you might have a community nursery nurse that will support you with that. At the moment, due to COVID changes, we don't have our baby hubs running at the moment. We really don't know when they are going to start again. But we can come and see you at home if we need to. If baby is struggling to put on some weight, maybe sometimes they do, we can come and see you at home and weigh your baby. And definitely the feeding support will obviously be at home as well, because I know there's no face-to-face breastfeeding support at the moment, although they're online, which is great. So we're there. So we then your care is handed over from the midwives, and we then carry on with you as a family. So we'll do that new birth visit, and that was around day 10 to 14, and then we will arrange to come back and see you for definite when you're around 6 to 8 weeks. So we may pop in before that, and we can certainly see you after that as well. And then we definitely make contact when your baby is 9 to 12 months old to do a development review, and again at 2 to 2.5 years old. So that's our definite contacts that we do with you. But we are there for you right up until your child goes to school. So sometimes people say, I've been signed off by my health visitor, but that's not the case, because we are very much there for you as a team. Even though we're slightly different and we're working a little bit more remotely, we are still there for you. So just give us a call. Our website in Gloucestershire, so it's Gloucestershire Health and Care NHS Foundation Trust. health visiting. There's lots of information, lots of contact numbers on there for you to find the nearest one to where you live. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. And I think that sums up the service very well. Katie, what sort of skills do we have that we can use to support parents in the first few weeks of their child's life? And particularly thinking about support that we may give in certain areas of their child's development.
We have different health visitors that will be specialising in certain areas of parental health or parental mental health or child development. So I think depending on what the need is, we will have those champion health visitors that can support with the, support the family. As Sarah's already said, we have public health nurses and we have community nursery nurses. So we have lots of different skills and lots of different interests within the health visitors within the team that can all support, with the support that is needed.
Okay, that's great. Particularly, I think something that sometimes concerns some parents is that we ask some quite detailed questions about people's mental health. Why is that important when first meeting a family? Sarah. Or Katie.
It's still me.
Katie.
Excuse me. Yeah, sure. Yeah, mental health is as vital as physical health. So yeah, that's one of the major supports that we offer is in mental health. Yeah, sometimes mums and dads can have a period of anxiety or depression as they go through their lives, which they can deal with quite well. And but when you have a baby, sometimes that crops back up again. And we're there, and we definitely support in that, and we will ask you about your mental health. So we are very much about the parents as well as the baby, because they all come as a package. So it's the parents' mental health, and then that reflects on the infants, on the baby's mental health as well. So yes, we help with lots of that, doing all sorts of observations we look at, the relationship building between mum and dad and the baby. So yeah.
Sure. Are there any services that we link into that may support parents who are feeling that they may be suffering from a postnatal illness that are specific to Gloucestershire? I was just wondering what the role of the perinatal mental health team would be within this.
Yeah, sure. So the perinatal mental health team, and they would come into a mum's life from the midwives, because they do like a screening of their mental health throughout in the beginning of the pregnancy. So if there's anything that flags up then they would be referred to the perinatal mental health team. And yes, but the perinatal mental health team will see mums for quite marked mental health problems. So that would be the severe depression, bipolar,
Psychosis.
Yeah, psychosis, all of that, high-end kind of mental health problems. So yeah, I was going to say they would work with us as health visitors, so it's kind of like a team around the family, moving through that first year. Perinatal means in pregnancy and the first year after a baby's birth.
Sure. And so our role within this would be supporting parents alongside the perinatal team. And also,
I think the perinatal would be looking more at mum's mental health and that sort of relationship, whereas as a health visitor, you look at other areas as well as support. You don't just focus on, the mental health. You know, you can look at sort of the physical health, you know, what groups are available, you know, so it's important to work alongside, you know, the other professionals that are involved.
Sure. So it's very much, and with us, we do listening visits as well for people with sort of mild to moderate mental health issues. How do they work when you see, when you identify a parent who is feeling a little bit low after a baby?
So I think we're able to offer a service where we can go in sort of weekly, you know, and the main focus of those visits will be, you know, parental mental health, you know, and supporting with that, you know, the mental health, you know, sort of focusing, you know, sort of, I think is it 4 visits?
Yes,
between 4 to 6.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's yeah, like Kate said, we go in and then we listen. We just listen to mums and dads on what's going on and offer support and listen to what their worries are, what their worries about.
Sure. We've had a question in asking us, how do we do these visits? Are they virtual or are they face-to-face?
The mum wants, really. So obviously with now in COVID, if it is face-to-face, then we go in wearing our PPE, our masks and aprons and gloves, which is not great, got to admit. But you know, if the mum would prefer that virtually, then that's fine as well.
Yeah,
on the phone, that's, you know, that's fine. We can do that.
So the virtual visits would be, the weekly visits would be looking at the listening visits, the focusing on, you know, parental mental health as opposed to what we would offer routinely. And it might be that some families prefer it to be every other week. So I think it doesn't need to be, I think as health visitors, we can have that flexibility on working with the family with when, you know, these visits happen. I think we have what Sarah described at the start being the universal service, which is open and on offer to every family with a baby from sort of birth up until they start school. And then we have that flexibility of being able to offer support to families as and when needed, you know, and a bit more of an intense service at that time.
During these visits as well, we're not just sitting down listening to mums and dads. We're checking on the feeding. We might weigh the baby as well. And sometimes if the feeding isn't going quite the right direction, then we can obviously put a lot of support in for that at the same time, because sometimes, as we know, if feeding isn't going well, then that can impact on a mum's mental health. So we'd be there doing.
How does that impact? Does it have an impact on the child, or does it have an impact on the mother? What sort of impact can it have?
Both, really. It can impact both. If mum is feeling a little bit low, then she may not be as responsive to her baby as perhaps she would have been like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we can help with that. We can look at, and we can do what's called a newborn behaviour observation. I know that sounds a bit long. And what we do, we look at the baby's behaviour and how the baby is communicating with the parents, what the baby likes, what the baby doesn't like. We look at the baby's strength in the crawl reflex, don't we? And baby's tone, and that's a really nice, gentle thing to do for parents, and parents love that. So if your baby is under 12 weeks old, and the majority of health visitors in Gloucester are trained in newborn behaviour observations, we can do that, and that will help boost the parents' mental health as well, because they can then learn and they look at how their baby is communicating with them.
And how do you get this observation score? Can you ask for it, or is it a decision made by the health visitor?
No, parents can ask for it if they know about it. Then yeah, they can ask for it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's offered by health visitor.
That's
So
good.
there's only quite a short window, isn't there, that it can be
Yeah.
done from birth to 12 weeks.
Sure. And it tests basic reflexes and responses to parents as well. Is it as useful for dads as it is for mums?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and you'll find sometimes older siblings within the house, you know, it can be a family, you know, something to do with everybody. You know, we're not going out just working with mums, we want to get the family involved.
Sure.
You know, so anybody who's within the house during that visit can be involved. You know, we can, like I've said before, we can work flexible in terms of like our times of visits as well. So we can be there when, say, dad's, you know, home from work, or siblings are either at school or nursery, or when they're home, you know, what works for that family to be involved within that visit.
Sure. Sounds really interesting, and I know I do it myself and find it incredibly useful, particularly for fathers who sometimes feel that they're a little bit excluded in the first few weeks, and actually using the NBOS score is very, very useful in promoting that the children do respond well to them, and that they actually do respond very well to their dads. One of the issues I think is sometimes with feeding is that a father can feel left out, and sometimes a skill like using the neonatal behavioural score can really promote that relationship between the dad and the child. Is touch important in developing a relationship between a baby and parents? Is this something that health visitors would support or identify?
Yeah, definitely positive touch, by, you know, sort of touching, hugging, you know, that eye contact with your baby. It's going to make them feel, you know, sort of safe, secure, loved. You know, so we would definitely be promoting lots of skin on skin, lots of cuddles.
Sure.
You know, you'll hear the wife tales that you will spoil your baby, you will be making a rod for your own back, you know, all of those things by cuddling your baby. Lie them down, leave them, because it's going to be more difficult for you. None of those things are true. We would definitely be saying, you know, your baby spent, you know, 9 months couched and cuddled up in mum's tummy, and then they come out into this big wide world. You know, they want to feel that cuddle, that feeling secure. You know, mums and dads, you know, siblings, everybody, you know, cuddle the baby. Give them lots of love. We would never recommend not cuddling them.
And what about crying babies? Is it useful for helping with that? Because I know a lot of parents, particularly first-time parents, find crying babies a little bit of a struggle at times. Is it important for people to sort of be aware of crying with their new baby? Does crying cause any problems at all? In sort of new parents, does it increase stress, do you feel? Or is it something that is quite natural and something that should be accepted? Because I am aware that there is a project called ICON, which is around at the moment. And really that's emphasizing that babies do cry, and that there are things you can do which comes into touch and sort of developing that relationship. But actually there is an expectation that a baby will cry. And some babies cry very little and some babies cry a lot. And I think it's around 8 weeks where that's sort of the prime time for crying, isn't it? And I think a lot of parents find that that's incredibly stressful. Maybe because, you know, we link crying into pain and discomfort in adults rather than what it really is with babies, which is a way for communicating. And I think I understand that babies by about 6 to 8 weeks have 7 different cries, which sometimes parents can quite easily identify. And again, we do that when we're sort of discussing the behavioural observation score. So this icon thing is very important because it's also a safety measure, because I think, I don't know, Katie, Sarah, you know, if you remember with your own children what it was like with a crying baby, but it's incredibly stressful. So actually giving yourself a little bit of a break at times is also quite important. You're not leaving the baby to cry. What you're doing is moving away to give yourself time to regather, or getting your partner to care for the baby while you give yourself time to recover. So these things are all important, and they're part of the role, and they're part of what we do when we do that initial assessment. I think one of the other sort of concerns with parents, and there's another question come up here, is can health visitors help with supporting babies who have colicky type symptoms? What sort of advice or support is there available? Either Katie or Sarah, if you could answer that. What sort of support is there for colic at all?
I think, well, myself and I think Sarah and other health visitors, we are going out and we're seeing a lot of babies where families are reporting like a colic or reflux type symptoms. Sometimes it is, you know, there isn't a quick fix. There isn't a one hat fits all for babies. Sometimes it is trial and error, you know, seeing what works. You know, if it doesn't work, trying something else. And I think sometimes it's about trying as a parent, you know, trying to keep calm during those times, making them feel, you know, secure, holding them up, you know, sort of after feeds. The use of a sling can really help. What else?
Yeah, it's and you know, back to cuddling, really,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's
that
just
cuddling and
back to that cuddling, that holding the baby up here. And it seems to be like having a double pressure, like the pressure from your shoulder on the stomach, and then holding them there. It's like a kind of a double pressure. It just seems to help.
Yeah.
And plus they're next to you, so that they're feeling the comfort from you holding them as well. And yeah, like lots of rocking. I'm doing it and pretending I've got a baby up here. But yeah, rocking and everything.
I think sometimes as well with like the winding techniques, what works one day will be very different the next day. So it is about, you know, lying them over your legs, you know, and it is, you'll be winding them for ages, and as you lift them up to move them in another position, that is when, you know, that'll help with that wind, which will then help with the colicky symptoms. Sometimes you go and see mums and they've tried everything. They've tried different, you know, techniques in holding them closely, winding, hot bath, slings, and it's not always helping. And it is sometimes that baby just needs time, you know, for their gut and everything to develop, you know, to become more mature, to be able to digest everything. So we just need sometimes that little bit of patience with babies, you know, and parents, is okay, you know, to say I'm struggling and this is hard. Just look around you. What support do you have? You know, partner, family, friends. And I know it's really difficult at the moment with COVID, being able to reach out to what might have been your normal support. But, you know, make use of that support. Make sure that you're taking time as a parent for yourself. You know, like Sarah and Julian has said, you know, that sort of sometimes just taking that 5 minutes away so that you can go back and feel a bit refreshed to be able to, you know, cope and deal with a baby that is a bit unsettled, but it does pass, and it will get better.
But it's the same with reflux as well. It's one of the things with reflux is that actually a baby that's anxious and sort of unsettled will tend to bring up a little bit more milk than normal. So it's the same sort of thing. It's very much with touch and very much with calming and getting yourself in the right position so that you're able to look after the baby. So if you're feeling tense or anxious, finding somebody else just to take over for a little while, or if there isn't somebody else to do it, just giving yourself a little bit of space. Because babies sometimes, when they're overstimulated, will actually sort of become even more fractious, and sometimes they just need a little bit of time to organize themselves, and being left alone just for a couple of minutes sometimes will actually allow the baby to reorganize and regather and become calmer. We've had another question, which is there any advice in understanding the different cries of a baby, or is each baby unique and getting to know, and you need to get to know them personally? And I think the second part of the question answers the first. All babies are unique, but they will all develop different cries, and particularly they've sort of identified within the science that there are about 7 different cries, from the shrill cry, which is feed me now, to the one that says, please could you close the door because I've got a draft on me. So it is very much sort of up to parents as well. It's something that parents can do in downtime. You know, you can sit with your baby and you'll start to recognize the different cries very quickly. I don't know if either Katie or Sarah know, but most people tend to, by 2 or 3 weeks, will be able to tell you the difference between the hungry cry and the wet cry and the uncomfortable cry. And I think it comes on, and it's just something that you can really develop just by spending time with your baby. And I think within health visiting, that's the drive that we have, is to spend time with your baby, to get to know them. They have a personality from day one. It doesn't just develop at 1 year old. And I think that's something that we do, because we recognize that the first 1,000 days of child development is so important. So, and you know, it's a wonderful time. It's a wonderful time for you to be there, but it can be also very difficult as well. So, just going back to child development and sort of other services that are offered by health visitors. Talking about older children, I've heard something about a system called VIG, which is something that the health visitors provide in Gloucester. Just wondering if Sarah could sort of run us through that very, very quickly, because it's something, again, that can help develop relationships, I believe, between parents and children. So I don't know if, Sarah, you could fill us in a little bit more as a practitioner.
Yeah, sure. So Julian mentioned VIG, which stands for Video Interaction Guidance. And there's a few of us health visitors in Gloucestershire who are trained in that. And what it looks at is the positive interactions between parents and their children. So a practitioner would come into the home, take a 10-minute film, go away again and clip the film to literally like 4 or 5 seconds long of positive interactions, and then they go back and share those clips with the parents. And yes, it's lovely, and it's really lovely for me as a practitioner to see, one, the clips of the positive interactions, and two, the parents seeing that, because you don't view yourself, you don't look at yourself doing these things, and we do them all the time. So if there is a mum or a dad with mental health problems that feel they are struggling with their relationship with their baby, then yeah, we can come in and help with that relationship, because we show you how positive it all is. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. But yes, so just touching on mental health again, a lot of it is about self-care as well. So work out what helps you if you're feeling a bit low, or if you're feeling a bit anxious. You know, what do you do normally? Would you go read a book? Would you have a bath? Obviously having someone to care for the baby while you're doing that. But yeah, but please say, because we know it happens. It's 1 in 10 mums develop postnatal depression, which is a lot. And we think,
you know, there's 6,500 babies born in Gloucestershire every year. So, you know, we do offer a lot with that. And don't be afraid to say, there's a lot of stigma around mental health. And just the message I can give you is it's okay not to feel okay. And just cuddle your baby, because cuddling your baby really helps with your mental health and also your baby's, because when your baby doesn't understand the emotion of love, but when they feel the warmth of your body, they then feel that as love, and then that goes up to their brains, and their brain then wires up in the right way. So even though, like we've talked about cuddling and how Katie said that some people around you might say, oh, you shouldn't be cuddling that baby, you're doing that far too much, you're going to make a rod for your own back. We now know that that is wrong, because we know that the more you cuddle your baby, the better the wiring of the baby's brain is going to be. So in the long term, you will end up with a much calmer baby, a much secure baby that, you know, when you're eventually you go in, well, if we ever get to go into mother and toddler groups, parent and toddler groups, you will notice your child can walk away from you and play for a little bit and then come back to you, because your child sees you as their secure base, is what we call that. So you as a parent will be your child's secure base. So, you know, cuddle your baby as much as you can, because it works in so many different ways. And very good for feeding as well, because when your baby is very close to you, you then work out the baby's feeding cues. So breastfeeding or bottle feeding, you are then responding to your baby with the feeding cues quicker than what you would if your baby was lying in the cot.
I think that goes for partners as well. You know, as I said earlier on, it's very important for you to develop that relationship with your baby. And also it helps with the relationship between parents themselves. One of the hidden truths of having a baby is that it will put a strain upon your relationship. It will change it. Most of the time it changes it for the better. Sometimes it changes it very briefly in ways that you weren't expecting. And I think the key thing for babies in particular is that there is calm and stability. And that's something that as health visitors, we always look for with children. Children will deal with an awful lot from a very early age, as long as everything is calm and stable and everything is as expected. And certainly within relationships, we always try and encourage people to take time for themselves as well, because the first 2 or 3 weeks is an absolute blur. The first 2 weeks, you're recovering from the birth, you're recovering from what's happened, you're recovering from the pregnancy. And then you get to week 3 and suddenly the baby switch comes on, and your baby becomes a lot more active. And you don't have time then to re-establish a relationship and actually say, look what we've done, look what we've managed, we have this baby. And again, sort of, you know, it's so important that if you're within a relationship with a baby and your partner, that you do spend time to actually get to know each other and talk about other things as well, or else you have 10 years of just talking about children, and that gets a little bit boring. So, you know, it's sort of finding out the things that you know and enjoy between yourselves, and that you can then include your baby with. Your life changes completely. I think one of the questions, and again has come up, is you know, why don't people tell us what it's really like? We can't tell you what it's really like because it's such an individual experience, but we know it won't be as you expect it. And I think we're very realistic, particularly about feeding and particularly as a service about all sorts of things. And I think as a practitioner, all I want people to feel is that they're able to talk honestly about how they're feeling, and particularly within relationships, and particularly within male partners or partners, that they can feel included with the child and included with what's going on. I think with breastfeeding, you know, a lot of dads say, well, what can I do? Well, actually, what you can do is you can make sure that your partner is as well fed and as well watered as they possibly can be. You can't feed the baby, but you can feed the partner, and that's very, very important. But also, you know, you can give them that break that they need. You know, if you have to go off for work for 8 hours and you come back, it's very easy to think and look at your partner and think, well, what have you been doing all day? Well, what they've been doing is feeding and caring and looking and developing, and giving your partner a little bit of time when they come back, and actually spending time with your own baby will pay you dividends as they get older. It's such an important part of it. And also sort of discussing things very openly as much as you can. And that's something we do encourage very much. So would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think going back to a point that you made about, you know, why doesn't anybody tell me what it's really like? I think it's looking, you know, to try and prepare yourself for parenting. It is looking, you know, during pregnancy, you know, what support you've got around you, you know, how are you going to access that support and what is going to be helpful. And I think a lot of mums and dads, you know, during those first couple of weeks, when, like you said, you know, you're recovering from the birth, you can get overwhelmed with visitors. And I think, you know, sort of during pregnancy, make a plan, you know, pre-warn family, you know, this is how we want this first month to look like for us. You know, have a little chat, you know, try and plan it, because nobody can tell you, even like your close friends, exactly what it's going to be like. You know, the labour is going to have a big difference on how you can prepare for things, and you know, how long partner's going to have off work. But sort of understanding what you expect, you know, your expectations of what a baby is going to be like, you know, and sort of setting those real expectations. Babies won't sleep for long periods of time. They do cry, and they will wake, and they do want feeding lots, and they will poo lots, and you know, those are really normal. So just being aware, having real expectations of the baby, sort of discussing plans and how you want those first couple of weeks to go, just so you're feeling prepared and you don't feel that pressure of having a brand new baby and a million people wanting to come and visit you.
Can I just say about visitors, if they do come, make sure they come with a bag of food, either a takeaway or something that can go in the oven. And when they do come, make sure they put the kettle on, or they do some ironing, or they're going to clean the bathroom or whatever. Just make use of your visitors, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I know through COVID, obviously people have been shielding away, and I know the breastfeeding rates have gone up because of that. And I think that is, I mean, I don't know, I've not looked at research into this, but I think it's because new parents and their babies are just being left alone to kind of like bond as a family, and the baby's not being passed around to visitor to visitor.
I think it gives you that time to really learn within those first couple of weeks, you know, who your baby is,
again,
to learn who you are.
So that's been really interesting.
And I think going back to the lockdown, a lot of families have said it has actually been quite nice, you know, not having so many people coming round. It is lovely having visitors, and we do miss them. But we have, as a family, you know, and whether it's baby number 1 or baby number 5, you've still got to find your feet with that, you know, as a new family, with the new addition. So lockdown has allowed families to do that. And, you know, so don't feel frightened to sort of put the brakes on visitors and just say, we need this time. And I think most people will understand.
Yeah, and I found this, I agree completely. I've found this as well, that what's been very surprising is how close the relationships have been. You know, obviously there have been people that have required support through it as well, but one of the things that I've heard from parents is that it's actually been a lot easier than they've expected, and that they've only had to bother about themselves and the baby. And I think, you know, that's clutching at straws from a very difficult situation, but it is something that we see. And certainly because people aren't time pressured. And I think when you're considering feeding as well, I think there's always pressure on time, and people put their own time pressures on there. And there shouldn't be, you know, just feed, just take your time, because it'll happen. You know, and if you put pressure on because you're trying to run away, or you're trying to go out, or you're trying to do anything, feeding becomes far more difficult. So all of these things are sort of stuff that we observe in practice all the time, and we try to support people with. And it's sort of a key part of where we are and what we are as a service as well. I think within health visiting, our service has changed so dramatically from where we were before. And we're now very much, we try to be an empowering organisation and an empowering service, rather than people that come in and maybe sort of people feel that we come in and judge, and that isn't our job. Our job is very much to support people and to help you make the decisions you need to enjoy your child, because in the end it's about enjoyment, although sometimes that's quite difficult to remember at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, just wondering if anybody had any questions for us at all, because we've been going for about 40 minutes now. Let me just see. What local services are there throughout Gloucestershire to actually support parents with breastfeeding and sort of and general baby information? What sorts of things do health visitors provide? That's a question. I've sort of paraphrased it a little bit. My thought is really, it's probably referring to the baby hubs. And what is a baby hub? Now, a baby hub is the next part of our service. What it is it used to be known as the baby clinic, and was used very much for weighing babies and sort of giving people time to socialise. But at the moment, the socialising part isn't quite as predominant because of COVID, and that we're running sort of book-in services. But it's actually your opportunity, you know, in a week, and you don't need to go every week, every few weeks, to actually talk to one of us, and to gain that knowledge that you get from having a face-to-face contact with somebody. So, you know, we would quite often talk about weaning, we quite often talk about feeding and any feeding issues you have, your own health, your baby's health, concerns about skin, concerns about general development, concerns about foot position, anything to do with the baby. You can come and talk to us in the baby hub. We do offer weighing facilities as well, but strangely, you'll find that we discourage it a little bit, in that we found that research suggests that actually weight isn't that clinically significant with babies. However, we know that the contact with ourselves is. So I would encourage people to sort of book into baby hubs and to use that once your initial face-to-face contacts with your health visitor have stopped. Do we know of any sort of breastfeeding support that's around at the moment that's developing, Katie or Sarah? Are the groups from the Breastfeeding Network?
Yeah, Breastfeeding Network from the BSN, the Gloucestershire Breastfeeding Support Network. I know they're doing a lot online now, which I've heard has been very successful and very, very good. We've also got our infant feeding lead, Emma, who we can refer to with ongoing feeding problems, and she will do a virtual phone call with a mum, which I know she's had some good feedback from. Yeah, and there's all the national helplines. There's the baby friendly website, which is really good. Got lots of YouTube videos on there, really, really good, excellent. The problem solving on there. But like as Julian said, phone us as well, because there's always someone to answer your call. Okay, you might need to leave a message, but somebody will get back to you. You know, having that conversation with somebody very often will ease your worries, and we can take on your worries and deal with them and help.
Yeah, you should never feel bad. And you should never be worried about contacting and talking to us, because I think a lot of mums in particular will try and ride out feeling low in mood, and they sort of feel that it's how you should feel after a baby. You'll feel a little bit sort of up and down with your mood when you've had a baby, and you'll feel that you'll have the baby blues. A majority of people will have that period in the second week where they cry for no reason and feel very emotional. But if that continues, and if you feel sort of flat in mood, and if you feel that things aren't quite as you expected, again, that's something that we do. And as people who are interested in both paternal and maternal mental health and the support we give, it's something that we would always attend. And what you tend to do is you'll talk to somebody on the telephone and then maybe do a face-to-face visit and then refer on. And at the same time, we'd be supporting you with the concerns you'd have about the baby, because it's never in isolation. So these things are sort of really important, and I suppose it's the message to sort of continue through the strand of what we've been doing for the last 50 minutes. That actually we are a service that is dependent very much on you accessing us. And it's a service for you. It's very unique. We don't deal with illness, we deal with wellness. And we are very highly trained. And we have a nursing background, but we've moved away from that, and it's very much supporting you in giving the best experience for your child. So I'm just wondering, are there any more questions at all?
I think, sorry, Julian, just to add on what you were saying then, and something that Sarah's already said, and I think that sometimes the stigma and the fear that parents have when they want to admit that it's hard, that they're feeling a little bit low, and at times sometimes they're not really enjoying, it's not what they expected. But I think it's that fear of saying it out loud, and then the stigma, and what will happen after, what will happen to my baby, will they be taken away, and a social care going to get involved. And I think it's sort of reassuring parents that if they're able to recognise that things aren't that great and they're asking for help, then we're able to support that, and work with that family to move forward for them to enjoy and make the best of the experience. So please don't ever feel frightened. Please don't have that stigma.
Yeah. And I think if you're younger, and I sort of abolished the idea of a young mum in my practice, because once you're a mum, you're a mum. And to be honest, you're already doing something I can't do. So what I always think is that, even if you're younger than us and, we come over as older, access us, because we'll support you, and we'll support you as an adult. We'll support you as somebody who's had a baby rather than somebody who's younger. Because I think, going back to stigma, people who have babies under 23, 24, feel very much that people are going to judge them, people are going to make judgments about the babies, and we don't. We very much will take you on your own terms as a parent and as a mother, and we will support you as that. We've had another question asking how support is accessed. Does it happen automatically after you've given birth? Now, how long is it for? This is something that I think Sarah covered right at the beginning, but it'd be great to recap. If you access support, if you have a look online and you have a look on the Gloucestershire Gloucestershire Health Visitors website, also I believe we have a working Facebook page as well. There are contact numbers for all of the health visitor bases throughout Gloucestershire. So you can contact us through that. The automatic part of it is that you will be contacted between 11 and 14 days and seen after you have your baby. Normally we give you a ring around sort of 9 to 10 days. We'll liaise with the midwife, who will hand over to us what's happened to you and how you're feeling and how things are going. And then we do an initial visit, which again, as Sarah mentioned, was the family health needs assessment. And then we'll decide what to do. Yeah, and we decide with you, not against you. So we say what's around, and maybe you want another visit, maybe you want a visit from a nursery nurse who will support you with feeding, maybe you want another assessment of feeding. These things will sort of be considered in that first visit. And then up to 6 weeks, we'll sort of work week by week with you. Some people are absolutely fine at 2 weeks and don't require another visit until 6. Some people feel that they would appreciate another visit, and it is sort of very much up to you with guidance from us. How long is it for? It can be open-ended. With visiting visits, we do 4, but that can be stretched over a certain amount of time. And then sometimes you may need a reassessment, and then we'd see about supporting you with another one. The service is entirely free. You don't pay a penny for this. It's one of those things, it's cheaper than Google because you don't have to pay data costs. And the information we give is all research based. So it's the best that we know at the best time we do, because anybody doing a Google search will discover that the first page is a lesson in doom and you need to go to the second page to see something a bit more positive. It seems to be that once you've had a baby, people tend to concentrate on the negative rather than the positive. We are not paid by anybody other than the NHS to do this job. So particularly when we come to talking about immunisations or anything like that, we do this because it is the role rather than that there is anybody driving us behind. We use the best research that we can possibly find. And as Sarah said earlier on, we will cover up to 5 years, and you can access us at any point. As your child gets older and starts nursery or starts preschool, you'll find that our role changes, and we certainly, one of the other specialist areas we concentrate on are children with extra needs. And we are very much involved in supporting parents and children through that, as well as children with the universal service who sort of sometimes have issues, with eyesight or hearing, and those are things that we can sort of support as well. I hope that answers that question that came in. Has anybody got anything else to add about the general service? Because I think it recaps nicely from what Sarah said right at the beginning. No. Okay. Right, well, we've got a couple more minutes left. So I'm just waiting to see if there are any more questions. Okay. Nothing's coming through at the moment. I think, again, as health visitors, why do we do the job? And sort of, I'll throw this one at Katie and Sarah. Why are we health visitors? What is the benefits of what we do? I'll start off to make it easier for people. I do it because there is nothing better than watching somebody successfully feed a baby or get over issues that they've had right from the beginning, or actually just progress and seeing that baby grow and develop and seeing those parents change and develop. It's one of those things that, as a very experienced nurse before I did this, I've never been able to replicate in any area of nursing. It is the relationship between the parents and the child is probably the best thing you could ever see. And I think all of us who do this job, this is really our driver, is to support you as parents in doing the best that you feel you're able to do. So I'll throw it over to Katie next. Katie, what's your motivation for doing it? Why do you still?
Me, so when you first asked the questions, I think what I thought is what motivated me to do my health visiting training, and that was, so my nursing background is within mental health, and I'd spent a long time, many years working in mental health, and I'd started to see children of mothers that, you know, I had looked after coming through the service. And trying to affect change at that point was more difficult. So I think for me, it was trying to come in as early as possible to be able to support, you know, families with poor parental mental health on managing that. So, you know, their baby feels, you know, secure, safe, loved, all of those things that we've talked about for the last hour, you know, so that they don't then follow within the mental health services, trying to break that sort of pattern repeating. So that's what motivated me to do my training.
And Sarah?
For me, I was a community midwife before I became a health visitor, and I would always feel quite sad when I would discharge and then transfer to the health visiting team, and I would find myself very often sort of wandering into the baby hub to catch up with parents and mums and see them growing up, and as for me that was a big motivator to move into health visiting. And yeah, it's lovely to see a couple together or a mum on her own develop into becoming a parent with their children, and how they evolve and how they change themselves as people, become more confident. I mean, yes, and it's and that sounds a bit wrong, but when people have had problems, not that I want people to have problems, is then when you go into that final visit and you shut the door behind you and you think, great, they've done it, they've solved their own problems, okay, with a bit of guidance from me, but they've done it by themselves, and that's lovely to walk away down the garden path and think, yeah, that's lovely. Yeah.
And that's a really nice note to end on, I think. And again, thank you for watching us. I hope it's been informative. It's certainly been an experience doing this. I think we're finished now. So if anybody has any questions for after this, if you just send them through, again, you can use our email through the website if you want to do that. Then we will try and answer any questions that you have. And thank you very much for watching. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.